Welcome to Animation for All. My name is Nathan Adams. I am your host. This program is presented to you by Shamble Studio.
Welcome to this tutorial, everyone. We're going to be talking about building sections and using the Mesh Bisect tool. This tool happens to be useful also for other things such as anatomical models or cutting a character in half. So let's get started. In this segment, we're going to discuss how to do the section cut. So we're in Blender 2.69, and here's how we're going to start. We have this building right here, and we need to duplicate it by pressing Shift-D. Now we have our object. Let's just hit Escape so it stays in the same place. Now, let's rename this object to Building Cut. So we'll just go from building.001 to building_cut. Okay, and then we'll Control C while hovering over that, and then Control V while hovering over this in the object, and now it's building_cut. And now what we're going to do is we're going to move the original building to layer 2 by pressing M. Then it says move to layer, and we'll just type in number 2. And there we go. Now, this object that we have, building_cut, we're going to tab into edit mode, hit the tab key, and now you can see that there are a bunch of vertices selected. Let's deselect them by pressing A. Press A again. There we go. And now let's just pan around. Get the middle mouse button. Okay, and we want to be not back ortho, but we want to be in right ortho. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do the Mesh Bisect tool. So we'll hit spacebar and type in bisect. There we go. And now, from the top, holding down the mouse button, the left mouse button, we are going to go down until we're below our object. We'll let that go, and now you'll see here on the toolbar that we have these plane normals. We're not going to worry about the plane point, but we will worry about the plane normal. So right here you see y is at -1. You'll notice that there's a slight slant to this. If we change the z to 0, we have a perfect vertical. And now, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to check the boxes Fill and Clear Outer. This will clear everything on this side of it. And then you'll see, as we turn around, that we have these floors that have been nicely cut. And then here we go. Now you'll notice, if I were just to uncheck the option Fill, you don't get those nice faces that were put in. But when you check that box, it builds these faces for you so it can construct your wall edges and your floor edges, and it makes this really nice section cut. Now that we've done that, let's tab out of edit mode, and then we'll go on to our next segment where we're going to animate this segment being cut away. So I look forward to seeing you there. Alright everyone, now we're going to do our animated section of putting together this building with the original facade. So what we'll do is we'll turn on layer 2. There we go. Alright. And then what we'll do is we'll scroll over to our render settings. We have a couple of things we have to do. I'm going to change my render sampling from 10 to, let's say, 30. Okay? Gives a little better quality animation. And then what we will do is, let's see, I'm looking for not the output, dimensions, that's what I'm looking for. Take it from 50% all the way to 100%, that's what I'll be doing. And then the next thing that I will do is I need to set up my render layers. So we have our render layers on numbers 1 and 2. The reason we're going to be doing this is to overlay the original with the cut. Alright, so now we have render layer, and right now it's not excluding anything. So what we need to do is we need to exclude layer 2. And then we're going to make a new one, and we'll just call this one cut. And we're going to exclude layer 1 on this one. Okay, so those are the things that we will do to get our scene ready for the rendering. And now, when we go into our compositing, control left arrow there, and we're in compositing screen. We have our camera perspective right here. And what we need to do is we need to allow use nodes. Alright, now we have our output here. And I need to turn off that snap. I don't need that right now. So we have one render layer here. And so render layer is set right here. We're going to Shift D to duplicate. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add, we'll just do search mix. All right. And that one is going to set up the two of them. Now notice right here, this one is render layer and so is this one. So let's change this one from render layer to cut. There we go. Now let's press F12 to do one frame just to give it a test. Okay? And we'll allow this a little bit of a moment here just to give us what we need. And while we're doing that, I'm going to add a viewer node. Okay, so we'll allow it to do its rendering. And then I'm going to add that viewer node. And we'll check backdrop. Right now, of course, there's nothing going on because we're still waiting for this to render out. So while it's doing that, I'm going to pause this for a moment and allow it to do its job. Hey everyone, I'm back. And one thing that I realized that I'd done that was not right was that when I'd done my render layers, I did them backwards. So I put my shell on the cut layer and vice versa. But anyway, I repaired that so that now cut is excluding layer 2 where the shell is, and render layer is now excluding 1, which is where the shell, or not the shell, but the cut is. So anyway, I also reversed the sockets right here so that we could get that correct. Continuing on, now we're going to do a fade factor on here. So we're going to add color mix. There we go. And with this mix, we are going to add this to our factor. There we go. Then the next thing that we'll do is that we will add an input texture. We'll add that to the top. We will go for color, image, and then this one we're going to change to black. I'll show you what texture we're going to use. Right now, as you can see, there we go. Put texture on. I have the texture set up such that now it is a blend texture. I go for a linear progression in a vertical fashion. Okay, right now I have it at 0. This is just some stuff that I did before I got back. If we set it to 1, then let's take a look and see what that looks like. Okay. Now let's see if what we do is we set it to 2. Look at that. The next thing I want to look at is, you notice that everything is turning black. That's not what we want. We want it so that this mix does an overlay instead. So what we'll do is we'll do an overlay. There we go. And now if we change the brightness to 0, now you have this completely transparent thing. Okay? And so now that we have that, we can go through and we can say, I want this to be at brightness of 1. And now you'll notice that there is a division right there. And that will allow us to do our scene overlaying. So let's go ahead and let's animate this. Right now, by default, we have our scene set at 250 frames. And I would like to do about 6 seconds, let's say, on this. So we do 6 times 24. That gives us 144 frames. So we'll start at 1 and go at 145. There we go. And so from there, let's set our brightness at 2. We're going to go in a few frames. Let's take it to about frame. We'll start this at frame, say, 20 if we can get there. Okay, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and we'll set up a keyframe right here by pressing I. And then we'll scrub it forward a few frames. I'm not going to be too particular. I shouldn't have been particular on that first one, but I did, and that was me. And we'll take this down to 0. Insert right there. I for keyframe insert. And there we go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set up our render scene now. Actually, well, okay, so we'll do that, and then we're going to animate the camera going up the building, just to give it a little more excitement, just to show you just how cool this effect will be. Okay, now I'll go to my output. Now we have it set as a PNG. Later on we can mix it in as an AVI. That's what I typically do at an H.264 output. But for right now, I want to make sure that I am doing all my stuff in PNG as an image series. Okay, so right now we don't want it in temp. What we want to do is we want to get a render cache folder set up, and I just happen to have one here that I have set up. So we'll go to blend files. Don't worry about this stuff. This is stuff that you can set up on your own. Okay. Render cache. Then we'll just call this section cut. Okay there. We'll accept. All right. And then every one of those images will be put into that spot. Now, as I said, we're going to take the camera, and what I want to do is I want to take this camera and have it run up this front of the building, and also take a little bit of horizontal kind of turning around the building. And so right now we have our scene set up so that the camera focus is set on this target. It's an empty. So we'll take these two things, G, Z. We'll go down to the base of the building. And then let's pull our frames back. And then what we'll do is we'll set this up by doing location rotation scale for both of these items. There we go. And actually, I think I want to take this and we're going to GXX. So that'll allow us to do the local x-axis, which gives us a little more control as to what the camera can do while it's being tracked to this object. We'll insert a keyframe again, so this overrides the previous one that we just did. Now we'll skip forward some of these frames. It does not have to be exactly where that other keyframe was where we did the alpha. Alright. Then we'll take these two, pull them up toward the top of the building. Maybe just a little bit more. There we go. And then I'll take this, press G, X twice again. G, X twice again. I escaped out of that. And I want to zoom in a little bit more on that building. G, Z, Z. And that allows me to zoom in and out, as you can see there. And that's going really fast. I do not want it to go insanely fast here. So you have to forgive me on this. Okay, there we go. That looks like it's right. Okay, I'm going to insert a keyframe for location rotation scale here. And then we will do the same for this. Location rotation scale. Now, if we do shift left arrow, that gets us back to the beginning of our animation. And now we can start to go up the building. So you're not seeing anything yet, but as I'm scrolling through, now you're starting to see the movement. And you're starting to see that the camera is rotating around the building. Okay. And so now that we have that set up, one last thing that I want to do is I want to get this compression set to 0%. I believe that's how it is. Okay. And now that we have that set up, we can do our final rendering, and then we can see our finished result. So I'll see you in a little bit. Well everyone, here's the final render. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope that I have taught you something. If you'd like to leave comments or feedback, feel free to do so in the YouTube channel, if you are watching from YouTube, or if you are watching from my website, shembol.blogspot.com. I would really appreciate comments below. You can also follow me on Twitter. I am found at Shembol Studio. Comments for Animation for All can also be found at hashtag anim, the number 4, all, anim for all. And you can also follow me on Shembol Studio on Facebook. So again, thank you for watching, and leave me feedback, subscribe to my channel. I'd really love to hear from you, and thank you.